There is a war for worship, not out there, in here. Because there's a tyrant that sits where only God belongs. And guess what? We let him. But today, we're not making peace with the imposter. Today, we drive him out. Not with noise, not with numbers, with fire, with stillness, with a soul laid down for real. This is quality religion, where we are on a mission to give you hope, to help restore your peace. But that tyrant, he wants to destroy it. But the temple belongs to God. Welcome. It's not just us two. We got a third. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody is doing well. Let me take that off. Yes. Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to Quality Religion. We are here. We got Miss Miracle Monique and Miss Kenya Prophet that is in the house. And we're ready to have a good show. You saw the title and you saw a thumbnail. We were talking about the tyrant that is in the temple. Actually, I don't even know. Yeah, I like mixed up the shows.
What?
I don't even know if I titled this correctly. I don't even know if I...
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, no, I did title it. Is it? Okay, cool. All right. It could have been the baseball title.
I was
We're
like,
doing
I was like it.
Okay, cool. Well, no, we're good. We're good. All right. So I'm just glad that we got everything underway. How are you ladies doing today?
Doing well.
Fantastic.
Cool.
No complaints.
Awesome.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Been grinding all day, getting these shows together, but got them all programmed, so should be easy going into the future. So I'm excited, really excited. So yep, got the new
I'm
prop
loving
tips.
the anime thumbnail things.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, they're
It's
pretty
cool.
They're pretty cool. Yeah.
It makes me like a club penguin for whatever reason, like the little coffee smoke.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's funny. That's pretty funny. That's cool. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the show. What we're gonna do, we're gonna have our first little section, little block, if you will, and then we're going to go through one of my Substack posts. We're gonna go through some of the excerpts with the remaining time that we have after that. But we do have a really good show for you. This whole show is themed based off of a series that is on one of our Substacks or on our Substack. It's called The Politics of the Soul. It's something that I have been writing with the help of Silas, my AI friend. We just fine tune different ideas, explore different theological and philosophical ideas that I have, and we craft them into these kind of like little meditations and parables that are kind of formed and written in like from an old wise sage. And so it's been pretty cool. We have the first 9 articles or flames is what they're called. We have the first 9 of them out, but they're on pause until we make dedicated videos for each flame. So once we get done with that, then we will start rolling out the rest, the part 3. But yes, so let's get into flame number 1 here. We're going to get Kenya and Miracle's thoughts since they are the ones that are on today. Let me see. Okay, so I'm 2 and Miracle's 3. All right, so we love to talk about idols like money, sex, and power, but what if your real idol is ministry? What if the thing stealing God's glory is the thing you're calling impact? And here's where most people miss it. The problem isn't that we've stopped worshiping. It's that we're worshiping at the altar of relevance and not at the true altar of God, where God sits in stillness, right? And so here is my that's the scripture. All right, here is basically what I think. It's worship doesn't stop when God isn't at the center. It just finds a new God. And in our generation, that God is called relevance. But relevance is a liar. It offers visibility, but it robs you of power. So yes, what do you guys think of this?
It made me think of, I don't know if you saw Smart Christian's video yet about TD Jakes and how he's like passing the church on to his daughter.
I saw the thumbnail, but I haven't watched the video.
Yeah, this whole topic, or you just said, made me think of that. Because like the argument is like, why is he doing this earthly thing of like generationally passing down like your church rather
I
than
see what you're
just
saying.
having someone that's actually called
Like
to
that's the
pastor
most
that
qualified person. Okay,
church.
yeah. That's kind of it's something that's actually pervasive in our culture that people, whether they're religious or not, fight against is this idea of like nepotism versus merit, or giving it to somebody who's maybe more deserving or should because they check a different type of box. But in all actuality, your opportunities are a result of the people around you, right? Now that doesn't mean that the opportunities that you give or that you are given based on merit or that you're qualified for those opportunities, but we got to recognize that opportunities are a result of the people that are around you. But it is interesting. It's like, oh, let me keep this generational thing. If you have good reason for passing it down that is grounded in the word, then I can see like, okay, yes, maybe. But if it's something like you said, that's a selfish thing, that's like, no, we're establishing my kingdom, but we're using God as the kind of like it's the cover. It's like he's the facade, right? Like God's only on the outside of the building, but really inside these walls, we are the ones running it, And so I think that's what a lot of people do, like just even down to the person. Like people do that in their own lives, but it plays out in bigger things, like possibly what's going on with TD Jakes.
Even how he like anointed her on the stage was like, that wasn't very biblical. But yeah.
I should have finished watching the video. I started watching it and kind of, I hate to say it, but I kind of got uninterested after a few seconds. I think it was maybe because he was talking really slow, but I could sense like what you were talking about. I could sense that it was more about passing along the torch than it was about maybe finding the best suited match. And I don't know. I can't say, but I think I just got uninterested after that's what my assumption was.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, so something that's even more interesting is that if you don't know who the Savannah Bananas are, they're this really popular baseball organization that they've established this thing called Banana Ball. They go and tour around the country, putting on shows for people, and they have an interesting twist to baseball. But a lot of the guys, and actually one of the guys who's kind of in this group that is really open about their faith, is a guy that I actually went to school with and played baseball with at the University of North Georgia. His name's Bill Leroy, so shout out to him. But another one of their guys, he puts out like these inspirational shorts about like faith and stuff. And he put out a short that's basically ties into the subject really well. And like, am I chasing like relevance, or am I just using my ability to give glory back to God? So let's check this video out.
God, please make me famous and get me to the big leagues. I promise I'll...
Wait, can y'all hear that?
No.
Yeah. Oh,
you heard it?
Oh.
Okay, maybe. Okay, I guess it's just us. So I'm gonna go fix that really quick, and then we will get back to it. So yes, I'll be right back.
Cool. This actually reminds me of a Substack I literally wrote today. I had no idea what the theme was, but I was writing a Substack today for my new Substack, Feminology 101, and I was talking about how oftentimes with women we often feel like the things we do just aren't enough, like life just isn't enough. And I wrote it after watching this funny video where it had Joe Budden on it, and it was they were watching a video of a guy talking. I don't know who this guy was, but he was saying like, I can imagine how it was in the garden. It's so funny with me just thinking about it. But he said this is probably how it went. Adam was thinking like, wow, Eve, like we're in this perfect garden, this perfect environment. You
And
know,
he was
we're
like, no.
great. We're great for each other, and like we can have all of our dreams come true. Like we just have everything, don't we? And Eve goes, yeah, it's just not enough, is it?
All right.
And I started cracking up. But
Okay.
I wrote my Substack article based on that, and it's funny how it relates to this topic because oftentimes, yeah, we do chase the relevance because we're not in alignment with what the daily purpose of our lives are, because we're not in
Yeah.
alignment with what God's will is for our lives. So
Mm.
a lot of times we don't really talk about that. And so I wanted to kind of touch on that because I fall into that sometimes too. And like my mindset goes back into old patterns. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like, okay, who am I serving today?
Yeah.
Myself or God? You know? And when I can finally take the focus off of myself and put it back on him, it takes all the pressure off.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I have more to add, but I know we're on limited time.
I know. That's why I spoke really fast.
No,
We have to save it for what's the name of our podcast that we're gonna do?
Yes. Marriage material.
Marriage material. Right? Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did not know this was a thing.
Wait on it.
Yeah.
Wait on it.
Yep.
Aren't I going to be part of it?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's like, what do you mean?
She's
wait
talking
on
to
it?
the audience.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, here we go. Savannah Banana Guy.
God, please make me famous and get me to the big leagues. I promise I'll tell everyone about you. You know, God doesn't really need the help of some famous big leaguer. Well, I know God doesn't need any help, but if more people knew me, then I would be able to tell those people about him. Well, what would you tell them? Well, that he's the reason I'm successful. That he's the reason I made it this far. I'll give him all the glory. So you would tell people that God is the reason that you are so successful, that he's the reason you've made it this far. Yeah. Okay, how do you define success? Well, you know, being a big leaguer, having a good career, signing that big contract. True success and wealth is not in the big leagues, and it's not in fame either. Look at the rich and famous. Do you think they're more joyful than you are? Do you think they're more at peace with their life? Well, not really. That's because true success is in love. It's in relationships. It's in dying to yourself and not obeying your every desire. And you can have that now. That's what you should tell people about now. And you can live it now. And being in the big leagues is not going to help you share that message at all. In fact, it might even make the worldly riches even more appealing and enticing to you. So should I just stop chasing that dream that I've always had? No, because God gave you that dream. God gave you the ability to play baseball. But work hard for God and not so other people can see. Don't have your identity so wrapped up in how successful you can become at baseball. You are a child of God, and that is enough. Plus, at some point, you're going to need to move on to something other than baseball. And it's better that way. It's all in God's timing. He knows what's best for you because he created you. Let's grow.
That was good.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
What about that?
But yeah, like it's literally, and he had the older and the younger up, which I thought was really interesting, right? Because he's kind of like his older self, him and his, wisdom that he has now is talking to his perspective when he was younger. But it also doesn't have to really be, when you were this age and that age, right? It's actually kind of a growth and maturity as a Christian in your faith as well, right? And so it could be just you're older in the faith rather than younger in the faith, or more mature, if you will. So I thought it was super interesting. But yeah, like how many of us, and I mean, of course he's talking about baseball and sports, but just for everybody, we have these ideas and we have these dreams, and it's almost like we're trying to reason with God and say, well, if you just get me to do this, then I will just give you glory. And then, you might even get a small piece of that, but then do you really give God more glory for you accomplishing that goal? Or are you like, man, that was cool, like let me just keep pushing forward so that right, there goes the I, so that I can, accomplish my goals, right? And then you just basically doing the little jackpot Jesus thing where you're pulling this lever and just to get something out of him, rather than doing what Jesus did, which was giving up his exaltation, right? They wanted to crown him, but he said, no, I'll take the crown of thorns and I'll die for you, right? I'll go and serve you, and be of service to you, rather than you just exalting me and me becoming another tyrant, which is exactly what this video is about.
Well said.
Yeah. So I guess with that said, what happens to your soul when like the impact becomes the goal instead of obedience?
Ooh.
Right? Because I think a lot of people think, oh, like impact over people or impact on people, my influence, or in this day of, social media, if I become an influencer and I have all these followers, right? That's God giving me this as, a token of his appreciation that I have great faith.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But when you put that and you mistake the impact that you have for basically God saying like, oh, good job, and you're not, and you veer off the course and you're not obedient to him, like what happens to your soul?
I mean, you slowly lose pieces of yourself. You slowly die because you, of course, are more susceptible to falling into, I mean, we sin every day, but I guess more susceptible to sin and like have blind sin and all that kind of stuff because you're not pointed towards him. You're not necessarily trying to live for him. Yeah, I guess you just slowly die as a person.
Erica, what do you think?
That is just so true. I mean, it comes to the point where you no longer have that peace anymore because you kind of forget to ask for it because you're not in alignment. And your definition of success is pointed towards what the world defines as success, and the goalpost is always moving and you can never catch it, and so you always feel like you're falling behind. And as you continue to go through that, you continue to move with that as your mindset. It's like, how can I get to where I want to be? But you no longer even know where you want to be. It's like that foundation is just like gone. You don't have that anymore. Your spiritual piece is just dead, like can you said, and you start to wonder who you are again and why you even have these dreams. Like, because like he said in the video, I mean, God placed that dream in your heart, but it's like, what's it for if it's not to glorify God?
Yeah, that's very good. If you aren't doing everything into the glory of God, it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, are you truly living out the faith that you claim, right? And this is obviously geared towards people who are already believers. Like, if you're not a believer, I'm not holding you to that same standard, but there's so many people out there that are Christians or in the church who have influence in the church, whether they're a pastor or some type of leader in ministry, and they mistake the impact they lead with impact rather than leading with obedience, right? And so what that looks like is when people are like, hey, we got to get our numbers up, or you always hear people say like, oh, we're growing. God's really doing a thing in this church because we're growing. And it's like, well, is God not doing a thing if you're not growing? Like,
yeah,
I understand like growth is good in pretty much every scenario in life, right? When you grow as a person, when you get stronger, it's a symbol of moving forward, right? But that doesn't always mean that you're a healthy church, right? Because sometimes you grow in the wrong ways. Sometimes when you put on pounds, it's the wrong sort of pounds, right?
When you use steroids, that's the wrong kind of muscle.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you can gain muscle.
Very true.
Yeah, in the wrong ways, and right, and then you have these side effects that aren't good, right? If you use performing enhancing drugs, to use a sports term, then one, you're in jeopardy of getting caught and getting, banned from the sport. But also you have to live with the consequences of what that actually does to your body, what that actually does to your temple. It's like now you're letting this tyrant into your temple, and the tyrant, from basically, to wrap this back to the Substack post, it's not necessarily an outer force. It's what is dwelling on the inside of you. Like, is it God or is it this pride that is steering you, right? Because a lot of times we'll blame stuff for influencing us from the outside, right? When really the only reason it had influence on us is because something inside of us was able to relate to it, right? But if nothing was able to relate, like when you're really in alignment with God, right? And you see something that is out of alignment with God, you're like, well, no, thank you. I'm just going to keep it pushing. That's not part of my moral code. That's not something that I stand for. And I'm just going to, like, they can have their fun with that, but I'm not on that. I'm going to go be what I'm on, right? But when something is holy and something is of God, then you can rock out with it, because what is inside of you is attracted to that. And so I think that's a lot of times where we get it confused, is the tyrant is not always this outer force that just yields its power over you. It's able to have influence because inside you're corrupted. And so you bow down to it because you think it is kin to you. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. So yeah, like in this, day and age, it seems like Gen Z is being discipled by algorithms, even though they hunger for authenticity. And so there is this lie that metrics equals meaning, right? So what do you guys think about that? Like, metrics equal meaning, and how can Gen Z specifically get out of this mindset?
Go outside and touch grass.
Go outside and touch grass. That's funny.
Because at this point, I think it's just about, sorry. I think people just don't know how to deal with people anymore. Like, we don't know how to be around each other without looking to gain something. And that's where the metrics come in, because we're constantly measuring ourselves against something to see what type of progress we made, instead of focusing in on the root of the foundation, which is Christ. And so we're constantly in this cycle of, what more can I gain from this? So we see people the same way, which is why we're not as social, because we don't trust anybody else.
Right.
Because we're constantly looking for something out of people. So we know people are looking for something out of us. And so it's kind of like a repeating cycle.
Right. Yeah. I think what Amani says here is very good. She says, oh, that's not it.
I was like, that doesn't look like Amani.
It doesn't look. That was from the last one. I guess I didn't have the comments put in the right thing. Oh, well. But anyway, Amani said, obedience is better than sacrifice. So shout out to her. I absolutely agree with that. Obedience is better than sacrifice.
I feel like obedience is sacrifice.
Yeah, I would say obedience is sacrifice. So like, sacrifice, you want to sacrifice to be obedient to God, if that makes sense. And so in your sacrifice, you want the sacrifice to benefit you in a way that makes you more faithful and makes you more holy, makes you more consecrated, right? And so I would say obedience is sacrifice, but it is sacrifice for the better. Because sometimes you'll think of these words like sacrifice or compromise, and you think of them as negative things, as if you have to give up a piece of yourself. But the truth is, you're always sacrificing something. You're always making a choice between two different things. Mm-hmm. And so you're always going to have to live with the consequence that you didn't choose one of the other two options, or the options that you left on the table, right? And so when you make decisions in your life, you make them with discernment, with wisdom, with the idea that the choice that I just made is going to help propel me forward to the place that I want to go. And so that's a lot of times why it when you kind of leave, I guess, the party lifestyle or whatever, you kind of want to go back because you're like, oh, that lifestyle is familiar and I know it, right? But you have to, make those conscious sacrifice, and it seems like it's a real compromise to you because you're not used to making that sacrifice, right? It hasn't become familiar to you to where the obedience is second nature. But when you make those decisions over and over and over again, and it becomes a part of your nature, well, now holiness is your default walk. And that life that you left way back in the future now it would have to take a real sacrifice to just draw back into that. So
I think that's especially true with the case of Jesus, because I think we underestimate his obedience, because he was obedient to God the Father, whereas it ultimately led to the ultimate sacrifice, which is why we have salvation today. And of course, we focus on the sacrifice that he was, but it was his obedience that led him there, because he didn't have to do those things. It was all on his own accord. He could have gotten out of it at any point if he wanted to, but he decided to be obedient to his Father for our benefit, not for his, but for ours. And so it's like you were saying, like those consistent daily choices that led to that, because he was obedient all the way up until past the day he died. And so because of that, now we have salvation. And so it's just really important to understand that obedience isn't without reward at the end of it.
Right. Yeah. You have to stay true to your assignment, right? And I'm not talking about assignment in the sense that, because a lot of people hear that and they're like, oh, let me go get my assignment from God. And then they start praying, which really all they're doing is just reasoning with what they want to do in the world. And then they come up with something and they're like, oh yeah, this is my assignment from God. I thought about it and I prayed about it real hard, but really it's just something that you want to do, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but assignment looks more like, hey, what can I do and what can I dedicate my life to, and what am I going to be disciplined in? And that reflects the discipline that I should have in my faith, right? So what's something productive out in the world that I can do, that I can be disciplined in, that's supposed to replicate the discipline that I should have in my faith? So for instance, in my life, I'm very disciplined at getting up and, crafting these shows together, coming up with different graphics, scripting out everything, and, just editing or setting up, different lighting stuff. I'm really gifted at this media stuff and I'm really disciplined in it. But that also reflects the discipline that I'm supposed to have in my faith. And actually this discipline that I have in my, when I am, doing this media production, actually helps me strengthen my faith, because I'm able to take that characteristic to my faith and vice versa. So as a result of what I do and what I dedicate my life to, or my hobbies, I'm also able to strengthen my faith as well, right? I'm not just thinking of something wishful that could just get me rich, right? I'm not like, oh, like God led me to cryptocurrency because he wants me to be rich. It's like, no, it's like you're just trying to jackpot Jesus again, right? You're trying to chase relevance, or in this case, status over obedience. And I think that's a real problem that everybody's wrestled with since the beginning of time, but I think we're especially wrestling with it now since like social media is pretty much everybody's job in a sense. Like you have to kind of be relevant online in some way. In most cases, you have to have a online footprint to be successful, to move up the ladder. So, yeah, super interesting. Super interesting. I do have another question. If impact isn't the measure, how does God actually measure faithfulness?
If impact isn't the measure, how does God measure faithfulness?
Yes.
I feel like it's a few things, but I would guess, okay, if impact isn't the measure, how does God measure faithfulness?
Yes.
I guess by, I don't know, that's hard because like, I don't want to say like by our actions, but maybe it is by our actions, like how we act out our faith with him, and going back to like what you said about like, what are we choosing to be disciplined in, and like through our actions of like sticking to those things and glorifying God and all those things. And yeah, like the verse where it talks about like in all glorify the Lord in all things. I feel like that's kind of how we're measured, is like how are we dedicating and using the things that we're working towards, or using the things that we have and stewarding. How are we giving that back to the Lord? How are we glorifying the Lord in those things?
Yes. I mean, I think, I think you're kind of on the money, or directionally accurate. Okay. So, yeah, I think it's just how you sacrifice unto God, right? Because God doesn't need your money necessarily. Yeah. God doesn't need your things, right? But he does want you to present your body as a living sacrifice. I think he says that in, I don't want to misquote it, but he definitely says that in the scriptures, like present your body as a living sacrifice. And so it's like, give yourself unto him, because God's not looking at necessarily your deeds or your outer appearance. He's looking at your heart. But your heart, like your actions generally reflect your heart. So to other people, like that's all we can kind of see, right? But God is looking deeper beyond that. He's looking at like, what is your heart? Is it truly in like this posture of sacrifice to me, or is it in this or is it just posturing or trying to get over on me? I think that's kind of what God is on, is like, hey, are you really sacrificing to me, or are you posturing for me, trying to, again, jackpot Jesus? What do you think, Miracle? You have anything to add?
Yeah, that's a hard question, like what Kenya was saying. I see it as more like the way he measures our faithfulness is exactly what you guys are saying. And at the same time, he knows we fall short too. Mm-hmm. And so just him consistently reminding us that, we're already loved, we're already chosen, and he already called us worthy. Our identity isn't earned, but it's received. And keeping within that, we're reminded that we don't have to be perfect when walking with him, but instead every day reposturing our heart to be centered towards him is likely the most we can do from a human perspective.
I like it. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Miss Mac. She says, discipline is essential for personal growth and spiritual maturity. It helps individuals overcome sin, develop self-control, and cultivate righteousness. Yes, I think discipline is is one of the roots that lead to the blossoming of the fruits of the Spirit. So you hear things like love, or the fruits of the Spirit, like love, joy, peace, self-control, kindness, all those different things. Patience, if I didn't say that. I think those are all rooted in having a disciplined life, right? Because a lot of people, they think that freedom is just going out and doing whatever you want, right? But really, it is in being disciplined, finding something that you can be productive in, being joyous in your work, but doing your work well, right? But a lot of people, they just want leisure. They think leisure is freedom, but leisure is only meaningful if you've done work, right? It's like I do work, and now I can have some leisure time because I've earned this leisure, right? When you don't earn leisure, then it just means nothing. It's like when you're just given a prize, you're handed everything in life, then you don't have good perspective. You take things for granted and it doesn't mean anything to you. But when you earn your leisure, which is actually the name of the really popular podcast, when you actually earn your leisure, then it's actually meaningful to you. Like the leisure becomes meaning. And that is true freedom. True freedom is actually comes through sacrifice, right? It doesn't mean that you're without constraints, because when you're without constraints, then you're just aimless. You have nothing. You can't. You're not purposeful in your being, and that's a real problem for people. So yeah, that was a very good comment there, Miss Max. So thank you. Very quality comment. But yeah, so I mean, I think people will push back and says, if no one sees it, how will it make a difference? So what would y'all answer that with? Like, if no one sees it, how will I make a difference?
Well, I mean, I think everyone, I guess going back to your earlier thing about people feeling like they have to influence all these people on the internet, but there's a whole life that you're living in real life that you can influence, or you can influence people. So like, yeah, maybe someone doesn't see online, but how you behave, how you act, how you treat people in real life makes a difference, even if it doesn't seem like it or no one says anything about it. Like, it matters.
Yeah.
Agreed. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, go ahead, Miracle.
I completely agree. At the end of the day, I think the process matters like more than the proof. Like those seeds that we're planting every day with prayer and reading of our word and just different things we can do to honor God. Like, you know, those things matter to him. They're precious to him. And so just keeping that perspective, we can be reminded that we don't need the world's validation as long as we have our creator's validation. So,
Well, yeah, we were already validated. Like
mhm.
the cross was validation enough for us to proceed in our sacrifice because we know the end. So, yes, I think that is very good. I think just going back with what Kenya said, I think we're always influencing people. Like people don't understand that people are always kind of like watching us. Every interaction that you have with people matters, even if it's a small interaction, because you never know what you said or what you did, even if it's a small action that they notice that helps propel them to a better future, to a future that is blessed, to a future that is more in union with God. And I think people overlook that aspect of impact because all they see is the fame and fortune and the glitz and glam of what it could be if you're a social media influencer. or what it could be if you're an entertainer, if that is your niche, or singer, songwriter, stuff like that. And so really they dress up this idea of impact as, oh, I'm going to do it for God, right? Just like back to the video. But in reality, if you get the opportunity, then it's like, yeah, like, cool. Like, I've been blessed with this opportunity, but make no mistake, this is all God, and I'm just doing his work, and I'm just a conduit, to use one of Alan's words. Mm-hmm. I'm just a conduit to further his kingdom. And I think that is our assignment on earth, right? Whether he gives us riches or whether, we have rags from an economic perspective, we will all go from rags to riches in a spiritual sense if we sacrifice unto God. And so I think that is the lesson that people need to take away from this particular podcast. Now, I do have a scripture, and that scripture is Romans 12:2. It says, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules." And so, yeah, like people will honor with lips, but really they have just deceived themselves because their hearts aren't in this posture of sacrifice. Does anybody have anything to add or any commentary?
Just that, I don't know. I think this is really good. I think it's definitely a great topic for all of us to just like go back and like use it as a mirror, use this verse as a mirror, and like ask God to check our hearts and stuff.
Yeah.
Agreed. I think it just pulls together the entire theme of what we're trying to say with this episode. Just that with everything that we do, like Kenya said, we have to be sure of our heart posture and who we're looking to worship when we do these things. And so I think at the end of the day, we have to be honest about where we are so that we can reposition ourselves to again be in alignment with God's will.
Yes. I would agree. That was all good. Now we do have an action item, and the father still wants the temple back. I don't know whether. Oh, wow. I guess I was tired. That is crazy. You decide who dwells in your temple. So ask yourself in everything you do, is this moving God in or driving God away? And that is what we want to leave you with on today. Is the tyrant dwelling in your temple, or is God who is reigning? Any final words, ladies?
Why are you looking like that, Miracle?
That was my inquisitive face.
No, I think
great action item though.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yes, very good.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, yeah. So if you want a deeper dive into the tyrant, he's a common theme within the first part of the politics of the soul. He's actually a consistent theme that goes on throughout the 9 flames that have been released. So if you want a deeper dive into that, go check out our Substack, which is linked down in the show notes. And yeah, if you, it's all free. But if you want to help us out, you can get the premium version, and you get all of the flames in one when you pay. I think it's just $5 a month, something like that. So yeah, consider subscribing, free or premium. Really helps us out. And you can also do a lot of cool things. You can message us directly, chat with us directly in Substack. We're very active on there. Miracle and Kenya also post frequently, weekly, on there as well. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Quality Religion, Profitable Conversations. And we will see you on the next one. Peace.